Hey guys, it's Wholesome Joe back with another video. It's been a while. We're going to jump right into this. I'm going to do a very quick video about how to set up a Power Rangers helmet for 3D printing. So I know that I've been doing mostly Ghostbusters stuff, and we will go back to the Ghostbusters stuff. Do not fret. But for this shorter video, I'm going to show you how to set up a 3D print model, a 3D model for printing for a full-size Power Rangers helmet. Now, there's a lot of other people on YouTube who have already done similar tutorials, and you should definitely check out their videos because they're really good. But I like to explain things as simply as possible so that people that aren't as bright like me can understand. So that's what I'm trying to do by making these videos. So if you've watched my Arduino tutorial videos, you kind of know what you're going to get with this. So basically all we're going to do is go through the basic setup. This is the Green Ranger's helmet. I don't know, you probably heard that the actor who played the Green Ranger in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers passed away a few months ago. It's very sad. Rest in peace to him. That hit me pretty hard as a huge fan. I grew up watching Power Rangers. I actually wrote a paper in school about who I wanted to be when I grew up, and it was Jason David Frank that the paper was about, because I was that big of a fan. He was the one who got me into martial arts. Just a huge influence in my life. So it was a huge hit when he passed away. But we, people like us, are the ones who can keep his legendary status alive by doing these cosplays and continuing to talk about Power Rangers and continue to keep the legacy going strong. And that is what we're doing in this video. So what you want to do is get yourself a 3D model of the Green Ranger helmet. How do you acquire such? Well, we can't talk about that in this video, but there are a lot of places where you can download various iterations of the Green Ranger helmet. Some of them are going to be more screen accurate than others. This one happens to be an exact replica of the one that was used in the show. I cannot tell you where I got this from. Secrets. But there are 3D models on Etsy. Colts 3D has some. And then there's a person on Facebook by the name of 3D Command Center who I highly recommend, that makes all kinds of helmets, not just Mighty Morphin, but literally every season, even the Sentai. So if you're looking for a really weird, obscure helmet file, he probably has 3D modeled it. And that's who I would recommend. So go ahead and get yourself a 3D model of the helmet, load that up into your whatever software you're going to be using. I'm using Cura because I think that's the easiest. This is what I've used since I started, and I think the vast majority of people are using Cura. Maybe you might use Prusa Slicer, but most of this stuff is going to translate to either one as long as you know the interface. But this is just going to be the basic setup, because I feel like the number one hurdle that people struggle with when they're first trying to print these full-size helmets is just getting it to print in the first place. You'll waste a lot of filament if you don't have supports exactly where they need to be, and you need to, or you can do this where you don't use a ton of supports. I've seen people try to print these and they're using crazy tree supports and stuff that I think is just complete waste of filament. So we're going to try to keep this simple, try not to waste a lot of filament, and just keep this really simple so that way you can print your helmet and be pretty sure that it's going to print on the first go, because filament can get kind of pricey when you're talking about things like full-size helmets. Now, disclaimer, you're not going to be able to do this on an Ender 3. I know this because I have an Ender 3. I have two Ender 3s. And when I first started doing full-scale helmets, I did print them on an Ender 3, but I had to split them up into smaller pieces, and that is a whole other ball game, which I will do a video about that as well. I'm sure there's other videos about it already, but I can show you the way that I do it. It does require a lot of extra work in post, whereas if you do it on a bigger printer that's capable of printing a helmet in one piece, it is a lot less work all around. So, you know, you have the risk of it failing, but if it does print, you got a lot less work after the fact. I'm using a CR10, a Creality CR10S. That is the printer that I'm going to be printing this on, and I've already set my Cura up for that. I have the profile, and most of these profiles are built into Cura, so you probably already have that set up. So once you have the helmet loaded up into the software, it's just going to kind of open however it was, the orientation of however it was 3D modeled or whatever the case is. So it might show up like this, it might show up, you know, face up like this, you know, what have you. But we're not going to leave it like that because, one, we don't know if it's the right size, because if you've ever watched Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, that you know that the footage from all the fight scenes was taken from the Sentai, which was called Zoo Ranger, which I also highly recommend that you watch if you're a fan of Power Rangers and you've never seen the original Sentai that Power Rangers was based off of, called Zoo Ranger. I highly recommend it. It's you can watch it for free, I believe, on Tubi. I've watched the entire 50 episodes. It's very good. It's very different from Power Rangers, but it's very good. But what I was going to say is that the actors, the stunt actors in the costumes in the Sentai version, which is what the footage was pulled from, they were very small framed individuals. So that means that the helmets were also made to be pretty small because their heads were not as big as your average American head, I suppose. So these might fit, you know, as they are for some people, but for the vast majority of us, it's going to be too small. So you might need to scale it up. Now, that is a whole video in itself, explaining how to scale it to fit your head. What I will say very quickly is what I use, and I think this is the easiest way, the absolute easiest way. There's other ways that you can do it for sure, but this is the absolute easiest way. If you go and look up a YouTuber by the name of Uncle Jesse, he has a video about a file that you can print that is a pair of calipers, and they're specifically made to measure your head for helmets. And it's a very quick print. It's a very easy thing to print. You just print a pair of those. You can even make them out of cardboard. I've seen people do that. But if you have a set of those, all you do is you just stick those around the widest part of your head, which I got on headphones, so that's the widest part of my head. That's where I would want it to be if I were gonna put it on over my headphones. You just use that and you measure, and then you pull it away and get yourself a ruler and just measure the distance between wherever the calipers landed on your head. It's obviously you can do it, we'll get it way more in depth than that with it, but that's the simple way to do it. You take that measurement and then you just scale your helmet accordingly. I already know that I'm going to make this helmet be 110% of its size, which is going to make it too big for the print bed, but we're going to fix that in just a second. I know that that will fit my head, so you'll just have to figure out. Some people like to print a little bit of the helmet, like just print like the surrounding edge and just print that part, and then they can just like try to fit that over their face to see if it's going to fit. But I just think that's too much. It's too much work. We're trying to keep this simple, so I use the calipers. So we're at 110%, but now we can't print it like this, right? This is not going to print. That's why it has these weird zigzaggy lines everywhere. But in order to make this print, we're going to have to reorient it on the print bed so that it does not have those ziggy-zag lines. So once you scale it, always scale it first, because once you start moving this thing around, the dimensions get all crazy and then you won't be able to change the scale and know what you're doing. So scale it first. So then I'm going to basically use these little thingamajigs, doohickeys, to move the helmet around on the print bed until I can get it on there and it fits. So you're going to have to use the rotation one, and you're going to have to use just the movement, which is going to change it to these arrows. And you just have to edge it around. And hopefully by this point you're pretty familiar with Cura. You know, if you're on here trying to print helmets, this is going to take some finesse, and I may have actually made this a little bit too big, so we'll adjust it if I need to. Which I thought that I made this 110 the last time I printed this, but it's possible that I made it not 110. And I might have actually made this one 100%. Yeah, so I think what we're gonna do, that is exactly what happened. But I'm gonna go back to the start. Like I said, I don't want to screw with the dimensions. So I'm gonna go back to my scale. You know, scaled at 110, and I just got these mixed up. I think it's gonna be 102 actually. So that should give me an easier time. And sometimes you have trial and error like that. You have to do that sort of thing, which is why I'm not going to redo this video and cut that out, because these are mistakes that that you make. So we're gonna rotate this again, like so. There we go. So now it'll fit. But notice the way this is currently positioned, and usually Cura will put this above the plate. I don't know why it's kind of going down into the plate like that, but you don't want it to be like that. So if it's doing that, just kind of keep an eye on that. But if you notice now, there's a lot of red up in here, and if we were to do auto supports on this, it would be just a huge mess, and you would use like a whole roll of filament trying to print it, and it would take like a week. We don't want to do that. So now that I have it like so, and actually we're going to go back a couple of steps here. Actually, we're going to go ahead and do our orientation before I rotate it. I should have did that first, but again, mistakes. So if you're following along with this video, we all make mistakes, and we all have to go back, and this is trial and error. But I want this to sit differently, so I'm gonna do this sort of do it sort of at an angle, so there's less of it not touching the bed. Once I do that, then I'm gonna go ahead and re-rotate this again, and hopefully it's still gonna fit now. Should not scale. And we're gonna move this over, move that over. So over. Might actually still be too big. You just have to keep playing with this until you get it sort of on there. I think we're almost there. I don't know. All right, after a bunch of finagling with this, which is you're gonna have to do as well, I finally got this positioned where it should be. So it's kind of like at an angle, like so. And now we need supports. Now I know what you're thinking. Let's just go over here, right? Let's set everything to how we want it, and then let's hit slice and let's print this baby, right? Wrong. Because if you do that, you're going to use auto supports, and like I said earlier, you're going to use way too many supports. We don't need to use that many supports on this. This Cura sometimes lies to you because it's saying that you need supports under all of this nonsense, and you don't need supports under all of that. And I'll show you how I know this. So basically, what you're going to want to do before you start adding supports, let's just make sure our print settings are what they need to be. So I'll go through mine really quickly. It's very simple. I usually print the helmets at 0.2 layer height. That's kind of standard. I leave everything else pretty much default. For Cura, some of these I might have changed, but you can look at them and see wall thickness 0.8, wall line count 2, top bottom thickness 0.8, top thickness 0.8, top layers 4, bottom thickness 0.8, bottom layers 4. For my infill, I use 20%. You could do as little as 10 probably and get away with it, or 15, but I find 20 to be a good balance. And I use the infill pattern cubic. I just like that one the best. You could use gyroid or whatever else you want to use. Printing temperature and build plate temperature. This is going to depend on what printer you have and what filament you are using. I'm using the crap that you can get from Micro Center for like 20 bucks a roll. So if you have a Micro Center near you, you probably have purchased some of it. It's called Inland. That's the only filament brand that I use because it works pretty much flawlessly every single roll I've ever bought. So, and I've used, I don't know, 100 rolls, and I've never had a single issue with any roll that I've bought. And I've used PLA and PLA Plus. But the temperature and build plate stuff that's on the box, I find is wrong, because it gives you a pretty wide range, and I had to do a lot of dialing in, but you don't have to. If you use this filament, set your print temperature to 215 and your build plate temperature to between 50 and 60. I like to keep it 60 because I want it to stay on the build plate, and I have a glass plate. If you have a magnetic one or a mirror one, you might need to use something different, but I have a glass plate and this is what I use. Now, my print speed, I keep it at 50. Maybe you can go a little bit higher than that. Support, I don't generate support because all of our supports are going to be manual. We're not going to do any auto support, so do not check this button. And then the final thing, and some people are going to not like this, and I don't care because this is how I do it. You do it how you want to do it. I'll do it how I want to do it. They're going to tell me that my bed's not level or whatever the case is, but I don't care about that. I care about the thing printing and me having a helmet at the end. So I use a raft. I like rafts. If you can print this without a raft, you can save a little bit of filament. The amount of filament this uses is just a non-issue to me. So, and to me, like if you have any kind of issues with your bed being just a slightly bit off level, using a raft will offset that. So I always use rafts. You don't have to. You can use a brim. You can use a skirt. Just, remember, the less area you have with your helmet being attached to the plate, the more likely that it's going to pop up and come off. So I use a raft. You don't have to. So anyway, those are my print settings. If you want to use a variation of those, use your own print settings, whatever. If you have yours dialed in, do what works for you. Now, we're not going to hit slice yet because we haven't added any supports, and I'm not going to add all of the supports in this video. I don't think, because it takes quite a while, or maybe I will. We'll see. And I said this video was going to be quick, and it's not really quick right now, is it? Anyhow, so how do we add manual supports? Cura doesn't have manual supports, right? Wrong. It doesn't have manual supports built in. You have to install an add-on in order to be able to use custom supports. And this kind of threw me off. It took me like 15 minutes to figure out where this even was because it's not obvious. You would think, right, that if you're adding an add-on, it would be like up here under extensions, like, because that's just like the terminology that I think just makes the most sense with like an add-on, an extension like you do for your browser. But that's not where you go. You go over here to this button that says Marketplace, and if you open this, you'll see all these different plugins and things that you can add to Cura. And I don't remember what it's called now. Custom Supports Eraser Plus. I believe it's this one. Cylindric Custom Support. They've changed the name a few times. It used to be called something else, but this is the one you want. Cylindric Custom Support. Version 2.80. You're just going to want to install that. All you have to do is click on that install button. I'm not going to do it because I already have it installed, but that's literally all there is to it. And once you have that installed, you're going to have your model selected, and you'll have another menu option over here on this left-hand little section that for your custom supports. And there it is right there, Custom Supports Cylinder. You click on that, and then you can either choose for it to be a cylinder or a tube and whatever that is, abutment. A freeform thing or custom. I like to use the cube. That's the easiest for me. I like flat surfaces. So I usually keep mine at 4 millimeters, and then sometimes I'll bump it up if I need it, but usually I just keep it at 4, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, easy peasy, keep it simple. So the places where you're going to need supports at are pretty easy to figure out. You're going to need supports all the way around the neckline right here, because there's nothing there, and you can see where this little edge is not touching the build plate, so you're gonna have to put supports all the way around this back side. but only on the edge, not in the center, just on the edge. And then you're going to want some right here at the beak of the dragon portion. And then you're going to want, actually that's it. That's all the support you need. All the way around the back, all the way around the neck, the beak. You could throw one right there, but I'm not going to. So we'll start doing that. So all you got to do, and then I'll just kind of like time lapse it. We'll time lapse it. So I've got this selected, and then all you do is just click underneath it. Boom, support, support, support. And you're going to want to keep them kind of together. Don't worry that it's kind of overlapping on the side, because that's not going to be there when you do it. This doesn't have to be too pretty. Just make sure you get good, surface with your support. Just go all the way around. All the way around. You get this all the way like so. This is fun. This is so relaxing. You see we got their supports all the way around, all the way around, all the way around, all the way around. Oops. If you click off of it like I just did, and you see this doesn't have to be particularly pretty. As long as it's touching the edge, that's all we're worried about. And you'll notice the more supports you add, the more sluggish this will start to get, and it'll take a few seconds to add the next one. So that's the reason why I said this can take a while, because the more supports you have, the more memory I think it's using or something. It's probably something like that. So you're just going to do this all the way down to the end. Oops. And if it does that, then you put it in the wrong place. All right, so that looks pretty good. So I got that on there. And then we're going to do these at the beak. Going to put one on either side of where this is, and then put one in the middle, and then I'm just going to join them together. Like so. Perfecto. You could probably get away with less than this. I just want to make sure that it's gonna print. So this is how many I'm doing for this, but you could probably get away with even less than this. I don't want to risk it though, so that's what I'm gonna do. So then you're gonna go around this outside edge.
A few moments later.
All right. That took a second. But as you see, we have supports everywhere we need them to be. And you can see that I did not put any supports in this part right here because you don't need them. You don't need them. This will print just fine without having any supports up there. So now that we have all of these supports in here, we're ready to slice this bad boy. And then you'll be one step closer to becoming the next evil Green Ranger. We're going to click slice, and we're going to wait probably a long time. So I'm going to speed this up. All right, we're back. This is finally finished slicing. That took quite a bit. Didn't used to take that long. I think maybe some updates within Cura have caused the custom supports to take a little bit longer to slice. But you can you can go watch an episode of Power Rangers while you wait. You can go watch an episode of Zoo Ranger while you wait. You can go watch an episode of Big Bad Beetleborgs while you wait, or if you're really obscure, you can go watch an episode of Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills. Comment if you remember that one. So, now that this is sliced, this is telling us that it's going to take 2 days, 19 hours, and 18 minutes, which is not too bad. Obviously, we wanted to print as in short a time as possible. This is pretty average. These usually take between 24, 48 hours, something like that, to print each half. It's going to take 431 grams of filament. That's, a little less than half a roll. And it'll tell you how much it's going to cost, which, if you think about the grand scheme of things and how much it would actually cost you to buy a helmet from one of the many fine makers of helmets out there, this is a very small price to pay. Of course, there's a lot of work ahead of us, but if you want to do this on a budget, this is the way that I recommend that you do it. So now all you have to do is just click save to disk, save this guy to your USB stick, pop this into your printer, and let it do its thing. And then once you've waited this 2 days and 19 hours, you should have the front half of your Mighty Morphin Power Rangers evil Green Ranger helmet. I'm saying evil because, let's face it, the evil Green Ranger took the Power Rangers to town for an entire episode arc, and he even jumped inside the Megazord and trashed the Megazord.
Time to meet the Green Ranger. Long live Empress Rita!
A lot of people have different opinions on that, but the Green Ranger kind of took the Rangers to town. Okay, so I told you that I would show you how you can tell whether or not you have enough supports, whether or not you need more supports. And the way you do that is that you have to look at this in the preview. So after you slice this, which means that may have to do this a couple of times if you're not sure. After you slice this, you're going to click on the preview tab, let it do its thing, takes a minute, and then you're going to get this view. And so what you're able to do now is come over here to the right on this little meter, whatever this is called, and this will basically let you go layer by layer. And what this allows you to do is it lets you see if you have anything that is trying to print in midair. You can go literally layer by layer. So as you can see, since we have supports all the way around this guy, there's nothing, and then there's nothing, still nothing, and there's a iffy part right there at the chin, but I actually think we're okay there because it kind of connects itself. And then you see we keep going, nothing's printing in midair, even the mouth. You come all the way up, and see now by the time you get to that, it's already supported by those, so that'll print just fine. And that's how you do that. So if you saw any places where it would look like something is printing in midair, like you saw a little blurb that has nothing surrounding it, that means it's trying to print in midair, and it's probably going to fail, and you need a support there. So yeah. All right, now we're on the back half. The back half is pretty much exactly the same as the front half. You're just going to orient this so that as much of this bottom half is touching the build plate as possible, and the only places that you need supports is right here and right here. That's it, nothing in the middle. So come over to your custom supports again. Boom, 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 boom. Just add those all the way down. Again, you could probably get away with less than this, but just for the sake of this, it's not going to use enough filament for it to matter. That's probably too many. We'll back off a couple. It's good. Come to the other side and put one here, and here. Then just Actually, that's not close enough to the edge. Neither is that. And then put these just like this. Cool. So, yep, that's it. Same settings as before. You don't need to change anything for your print settings. You just hit slice, wait for it to print, you'll be good to go. If this video helped you, if you like or want to see more content like this, make sure you hit the bell, like, subscribe, comment. I answer pretty much every single comment. It might take me a little bit, but I try to answer every single question that comes through. So if you have questions about 3D printing, about cosplay, about filmmaking, about all of the things, or any of the things that I know anything at all about, feel free to ask. It can be on this video, it can be on any video. Go back and watch the other videos. There's going to be a lot more where this came from. See you next time.